my lovely witches. Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time, I'm Corrigan the Crone, and we talk mostly about art magic here, but all things magical. And today I have another flip through for you. This one, this book was not something that I intended to make. I didn't even intend to make it, full stop. Funny story. I went into my studio one morning deciding to focus on a particular half-finished project. I had very specific plans of what I wanted to achieve. And I walked in and I sat down at my desk and I looked over to the shelf where I keep all sorts of bits and bobs. And sitting on that shelf was this fabric, this fluffy furry fabric. And I had originally purchased this because I wanted to make a Kernonos poppet. But when it arrived, it was a lot fluffier than I was expecting. And it was too much for what I had in mind. And I have not yet created the poppet because I have not yet found the perfect fabric. I think I'll actually try and buy it in a shop, physical shop, so that I can go and see it, feel it, touch it, make sure it's right, because this looked amazing online and it is amazing fabric. I love it. But it wasn't what I thought it was. So I decided I would, for some reason, I looked at the fabric and I'm like, yep, I got to make the Monster Book of Monsters. Neffy agrees with me. She's here hanging out and loving on the Monster Book of Monsters as well. So that's what I did. I spent an entire day creating the Monster Book of Monsters, and I'd used some Harry Potter papers inside it, and had intended to, I don't know what I'd intended to do it with. I really didn't have an intention for it, but I'd made it more as a book that you just write some stuff in. So I never intended to use it as a Book of Shadows. And then it sat on a shelf for a while and I would pick it up and I just kind of want to hold it. It has a really animate feel to it. It definitely feels like it has a personality. Maybe it's the eyes and the fur, I don't know, but I used to find myself sort of hugging it. And I was like, you know what, maybe this does need to be a Book of Shadows. Unfortunately, it wasn't really quite set up the way I normally like my Books of Shadows. It's, even though it looks quite large, the pages inside are not. They're about A5 size because I think I just folded over A4 papers. And I prefer to work on an A4 page, so a double spread would be A3. Or at the very least, the American sizing, I think it's an 8x11, which is a little bit smaller than an A4, but it's similar. So there was that, which wasn't something that I loved about working in this. And the other thing is I had to take 2 signatures out because, you know me, and I chunk everything up, and this book hadn't had any room left for it for chunking up. But I found this belt in the op shop and decided it was obviously the right thing to use as a closure for the Monster Book of Monsters. So here we are, the Monster Book of Shadows. Opening him up. So this is book 16. And it did only take me, it was about 6 weeks. I went through to pretty much the end of November from early October. I didn't do my usual collage. This is actually a pocket where when I'm working in my books, I like to have pockets in either the front or the back or both. So I can sort of bits and pieces that I'm, you know, drawn to, ephemera-wise, I can tuck them in and then decide where I use them or when I use them so that they're sort of at hand. So although they tend to then be empty once I've completed the book, because anything that I haven't used within the book, I'll then tuck into the pocket of my next Book of Shadows. But yeah, that's why I like to have pockets, because then I've got those pieces at hand. So this is going to be an awkward book. You'll see it is a really awkward book to show you. I'm not sure if maybe it might be easier if initially I have something underneath. I don't know. Anyway, let the adventure begin. So, another pocket tuck spot. This was some herb and resin charms that I was making, sort of orgonite charms. I have a set of molds that have these shapes, and I was making little charms for various purposes. This was just some herbal teas that I was drinking and decided to keep the ingredients because they were all really, really yummy. So I can make them again. Not that I made them, but so I can make them. This was some work on shell magic. But you can see the pages are really small for what I normally do. And I found that really constricting particularly when I first started working in the book. And for some reason, most of the spreads didn't feel right being a full spread either. They just wanted to be one page. I'm not quite sure why. This is the thing, I find my books do have a personality of their own. This was some work on magpie magic because I have a family of magpies that continue to come they're there all the time. They bring their new babies in. I like to put food out for them, and I feel a really strong connection with them. So I wanted to look up, what their significance is magically, or what their correspondences are. This was an emotional protection charm. This was a recipe for magical sugar. I think that actually belongs to this page. Might need to glue that sticker down. So that's, infusing sugar with the magic of herbs, spices, and floral elements to suit your purpose. This frog's bonnet stew. So I found out that ceps, which in Australia we tend to call porcini mushrooms, I think because we have a large Italian population in Australia, so a lot of things, in the UK you might call, you might use courgettes and aubergines, and we don't. We use eggplant and zucchini, and I think that's probably why. Anyway, off topic. So porcini mushrooms, ceps. And I'm going to completely butcher the Gaelic, so apologies in advance. I don't speak Gaelic and I can't pronounce it. So Boned an Loscan, I don't know if that's right, is the Gaelic for ceps and means frog's bonnets. And I think that is the cutest name for a mushroom ever, frog's bonnets. So when I found that out, I was like, right, I have to make something with frog's bonnets in it. And I just wrote in my mushroom risotto recipe, which forevermore now will be called frog's bonnet stew. Again, that was some information from one of those magazines I think I talked about in my last Book of Shadows tour, Book of Shadows 15. This I purchased from Taylor the Kynoch Witch, her Oracle deck, which is lovely, by the way. Highly recommend. And she sent this little print of one of the cards as well. This, I think I showed on my Instagram. It's a recipe. It's a spell for drought, for ending drought. It came out of Judika Ilish's book 5,000 spells, Encyclopedia of 5,000 Spells. But I thought this is going to be really good in the summertime because where I live, as I've said before, we get fuck all rain in the summer. This was a self-love spread, just an intuitive art magic spread. This was some road opener work that was inspired initially by this gorgeous sigil that came from Megan the Moon, in that pack that I purchased from her, as did this lovely paper. So I thought, yep, I want to do some road opener stuff. And this guy kind of just popped up almost out of nowhere, and he's my road opener genie. And then I have created this card with my road opener genie spell, which I used her sigil again on the candle and some keys and some herbs and what have you. So that was that spell work. This is New Moon Intentions. This is a piece of ephemera from Molly Roberts, and then I've actually used these pieces of fabric that were the fabrics that I tied to the apple tree for that new moon. It goes behind the thing. Another sort of art magic piece on just the wildness of... No, I don't really need to talk about that. It's some personal stuff there. This is my Beltane spread. Beltane was a little strange this year. It's normally sunny and starting to get quite warm, and we've had a very slow start to spring and early summer, but it's ramping up now. We're definitely getting some hot days. So I did a weaving. I do a weaving every year for Beltane of some kind, whether weaving, sewing, some sort of fibre arts. That's a riff, my riff on a maypole. So I actually made a witch's ladder this year, which was lots of fun. I really enjoyed it, and I hopefully will show that to you. I'm planning to do another video soonish, as a bit of a show and tell. I know I've talked about it before and haven't done it yet. I have all these ideas to bring you videos, and finding time to create them is another matter. So, however, we are getting there. And then I did a little simmer pot for joy and success as well. Here, I think I've spoken before about the comfy, cozy, witchy thing from Jenny Blonde, and I have started to do that just on occasion. I think it's fun. This was at the beginning of November. This was a spread on prosperity and abundance, sort of art spell. Some sigil work. This was a Branwen oil that I created, and wrote the recipe on the back here. And there's some confetti in there. That's now going to fall all over my house because it's escaped from my book. This was to do with I think it was one of the first lessons in the Molly Roberts Rock Your Grimoire course. So you'll see a few spreads and things in here. I think that's one of the reasons why this book filled so quickly. Also because I had to take so many pages out of it because it just got so crazy chunky. But so this is things that are magical to me, which I've sort of done very similar things to this before. This is not a unique idea for me. You will have seen them in previous books. I think there might have even been one in the last book. So yeah, that's that. This was an affirmation. And this was a little bit about an artist's date that I did. Some blessing work, also from that artist's date. And this was sort of, there was an abstraction sort of lesson in, and here it is again. This was getting back to sort of your inner child when it comes to drawing, because as Molly put it, I think she basically says all kids are artists. They know they're artists and they all draw. And they don't ever consider, their inner critic hasn't appeared yet. You know, they don't sort of go, oh, well, that's, you know, a cat doesn't actually have a body shaped like a rectangle. No, but that doesn't matter. This is boiling things down to their basics and basic shapes, this sort of abstraction. And I did my kitties because I love them so. My little furry familiars, and I used these really thick crayons. I think that's another video that I'd quite like to bring you at some stage in the future, hopefully. Is another art materials video with some of the things, some of the different art materials that I use that I really love working in my books with. So, you know, that idea will go on the list of a billion ideas. And I keep getting wonderful ideas from all of you guys. Please know that I listen to them and I have plans to make them. Someone has asked me for a video on working with Bast or Bastet, and it is in the back of my mind. I know that person asked me months ago and I haven't done it, but it's on my to-do list. Another person has asked for a series on magical oils that I make, and that's also on my list. I just haven't done it. So they're coming. Someone else asked me for tips for beginner witches, also on my list of things that I want to make. So hang in there, guys. Stick with me. I will bring you videos that you want to see, I promise. Don't need to really talk about that. Oh, except this was fun. This was a task from The Artist's Way called Imaginary Lives, and you have to come up with 5 lives that you might have led, jobs you might have done, or beings you might have been, without thinking about it, just off the top of your head, totally as crazy as you want them to be. And these were the ones that I came up with. Some of them are quite obvious, you know, an art teacher or a herbalist, or quite frankly, even the village witch. Yeah, that makes sense. But the first 2 are probably the most creative. Swamp hag was the first thing that came into my mind. Why? I don't know. Apparently, I want to be a swamp hag. I'm okay with that. And the second one is a paint color namer, which I have always thought would be the most fun job ever. You know, you go into the hardware store and there's all of those little swatches, all with their pretty names. I would love to be the person that gets to name things. Only they'd probably get a bit strange. They'd probably have Swamp Hag green or something. Anyway, probably a good thing I don't. Baba Yaga house, that was just inspired by the fact that these chicken legs were attached to a chicken in a magazine that I was cutting up for collage, and I was like, well, these chicken legs are perfect. I have to make this Baba Yaga house, obviously. This is an astral travel oil recipe. Another piece from Megan. The Cauldron of Transformation. This was another Rock Your Grimoire prompt. Again, I think I showed this on my Insta. It was about the essence of yourself. What makes up your witchy self. Really enjoyed that. And I really enjoyed seeing other people's versions of this too. The way people interpreted it was so fascinating. Just loved it. Some magical potions that I was creating. A whole bunch of them in here. These are some pieces of ephemera that I had been hoarding for a while and decided to finally use. Some from Molly, some from Megan. But you can see why this book gets so chunky, because I've just stuffed it with so many cards and pockets and things. This was the full moon in Taurus spread I did on that. As you know, I will often do this as my full moon ritual. Might be able to take that away now. And then Life Pie. Again, this was an exercise from the Artist's Way, as was that one. Some personal stuff in there. This, this reflection work, I suddenly decided, well, not suddenly decided, I suddenly thought about the Mirror of Erised from Harry Potter, which shows you your greatest desire when you look into it. And I thought to myself, what would I see if I were to look into the Mirror of Erised? And then obviously it has to become an art spread in my book. So I wrote down what I would see on a piece of vellum, and then I've glued it in back to front, mirrored, because it's a mirror. And then I made a mirror. So that was a really fun spread to do. This was some information on the symbolism of the spiral, which, as you know, means quite a lot to me. Appears in a lot of my art magic. It appears in my spreads. It's a symbol of my goddess. It's a symbol of my faith. It's a really important symbol to me. And this was on the numerology of the number 56, which for the longest time has been my favourite number. And I couldn't tell you why. And I didn't realise until I started Googling the spiritual significance of the number, is that it's one of these things that's called an angel number, like 1111 and 22 and 999 and what have you, and 56 is one of those as well, which is mostly associated with luck, positive energy, fortune and love, which is nice. Oh, this was from recurring dreams. I just kept dreaming. The perspective of this painting is terrible, by the way, but that doesn't matter. What it represents is what's important. I kept dreaming about stairs and having to go down stairs that were related to buildings that were into water. All sorts of different buildings in different scenarios, but they were all old buildings, and all of them, the stairs led into the water, and I don't know what the significance was, and I don't know what was in the water. So that's where that came from. As you know, I will often paint pictures that are inspired by or of my dreams. That was my brew box. My little things, and I put little bells on them. I love to have bells on my books. It feels quite witchy and protective, so you essentially have witches' bells on your book. This is my Daisy Happiness spell. Yeah, that was fun. It's essentially a bath spell. I love bath spells. This was a forest divination idea. And here's me playing with my crayon and watercolour Resist again, which is a bit of a favourite at the moment. This is a really, really gorgeous metallic calligraphy pen made by Artline. Really like those. Nasturtium Gold Spell, that's from Cheryl and Darcy. And this was how to awaken the spirit of an altar with a little incantation. Another art magic spread on joy and happiness, obviously. This was an inspiration incense by Devon Hunter for unblocking creativity. Smells incredible. Sandalwood, rosemary and copal. It's gorgeous. A contentment candle. A loving bell. I really loved this idea. I think it's a Scott Cunningham inspired spell. And again, here's me adding bells to my book. Another little art spread. Oh, this was fun. I really enjoyed this. This is my recipe for healing chicken soup. And I decided to put all of the ingredients on little circles of card and draw them and have them come out almost sort of serpent-like from my book. But it's another reason why this book gets so chunky. So that's the instructions. These are the ingredients. So much fun. I think you could do that with other spells as well. Other things. Maybe choose something with fewer ingredients so that you don't end up with a really thick page in your book. Flower moon bath. Oh, here we go. Comfy, cozy and witchy again. A speedy work week spell. It's using a bloodstone. New moon intentions again. Secrets. Not sure if I can show you what's on the other side of that. No, I don't think I can. Sorry guys. But there you go. Little secret pocket of stuff. Cats. Cats are magic and how they're magic. Obviously feeling a lot of love for my cats in this book. So they're appearing a fair bit. I can get that back in. There we go. I love these children's book illustrations of cats. Oh, sticking together because we've used acrylic paint. That's what happens. In fact, it looks like we've used it and then stuck it together before it's dried. Yep, well done. This is where things started to get just hard to work in because of the way this book would sit. So that was a birthday card to myself. I really inspired to make zines lately. And this was a birthday zine that I made for myself. A recipe for a happy birthday. So that was obviously done on my birthday. This was about embracing the word hag and being the hag. This was a spread about fear, not letting fear control you. This was a self-care spell that I did. Magical Sense. I think this was also from Rocky Grimoire, perhaps. This was a success spell. I made this success sigil, printed that on the page over and over. Wrote some affirmations about success. And again, this was inspired by this sigil from Megan. And then within here, we have the herbal part of the spell. This packet is, you can't hear it, is filled with herbs. And those herbs are here. So that was some success magic going on there. Love potion number 9. A love oil I was creating. This was some work on the elements, fire and water. And then we had earth and air. Oh, this, I'm sorry that this is so hard to look at. This is me and all the different hats I wear. And when you think about all the different roles that you play in your life. And I decided to create them with these hats. It was just some information about being and doing as a witch. And that was from my order. I ordered the cutest oracle deck I've ever seen about cats. Very catty book, this one, lots of cats. And that we got to the end. It just got too hard to do anything further, and that last page was done. So there you have it. Possibly the chunkiest grimoire yet. The Monster Book of Shadows. I hope you enjoyed this little tour again of another one of my books. This one completed in a fairly short space of time. But as I said, I think that's partly because I was working so hard on various courses that I was doing all about art and art magic. So I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope it's inspired you to get stuck into your books yourselves, do a bit of art magic, do some spells, explore some themes, and play and be creative. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you in the next video.